All right. Well, it's another Terminello's take. And Lou, we're actually going to air this on Friday for Fanatics Friday because obviously I love my affiliate partnership with them. And I figured, hey, let's get them involved with Fanatics Friday and Lou Terminello's take, right?
I'm honored. Thank you so much. Glad to be part of it. Thank you.
All
And again,
right.
thank you for having me.
Well, we've had a really interesting few weeks in basketball world, and we haven't really even covered it, but we lost Walton and West. That's what I'm calling it. Walton and West. Bill Walton, the legendary player, and I knew him as a broadcaster, one of the most colorful broadcasters out there. I think you'd agree, Louis. But you saw him play, something I didn't have the chance to do. So let's start with the loss of Bill Walton. I know Jerry West yesterday, the logo, if you will, but let's go chronologically. So Bill Walton passes, and what were your original thoughts when he passed?
Well, I saw him play obviously his entire college career, and remember, in his day, freshmen weren't eligible to play, so he only played sophomore, junior, and senior year, and he was larger than life. I mean, he followed not directly, but he followed the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who was then called Lou Alcindor at UCLA. And there's always the battle: who was the greatest college player, Jabbar, Abdul-Jabbar, or Walton? But Alex, they were both so great and both had a profound hold on college basketball in those days. But you got to remember, Bill Walton won 88 straight games. And I remember the game that, before we dive deeper into him personally and his achievements, 88 straight games. The game he lost was at Notre Dame, and it was on NBC, but NBC had a deal with TVS. They didn't own the rights directly. It was in association with TVS. And Eddie Einhorn from Fort Lee, New Jersey, put TVS together. Notre Dame was up 70 to 50, was down 70 to 59 to the great Walton team, and scored the last 12 points to beat UCLA 71 to 70. Dwight Clay, I could still see it. I'm watching on my black and white television. Yes, Alex, there were black and white TVs in the old days. He hit it from the right corner and put Notre Dame ahead. And then UCLA and Walton, they had 2 or 3 shots within 5 feet of the basket. Tip, no, and then the game's over and the fans run on the court in this historic winning streak. 88 straight games. 88 straight games is over. He was incredible. I mean, they lost in his senior year to North Carolina State in the national semifinal game, a North Carolina State team that was outstanding with David Thompson and Tom Burleson and Monty Tao. Just a great team. They lost in double overtime in one of the 4 or 5 greatest college basketball games I ever watched.
And on a personal, we don't talk about this much, but on a personal note, we do talk about adaptability, right? And I don't know if you want me to go here, but as you're talking about all these memories, when you had that incident, that aneurysm years ago, were you afraid you were going to lose some of these sports memories that you grace us with every week?
I was, because there was some things that happened when I had it that I don't recall during that time. During that year of 2015. So yeah, that's I am happy that I'm able to recall some of these tremendous sports classic moments, because, as you know, I'm a sports guy like you, and
you are a diehard sports fan, my friend. And so,
but Walton was so great, Alex. He was so great. When he was drafted by the Trailblazers, he turned the team around, not right away. A couple of years they were unsuccessful, and then in 76, 77, the first year after the ABA-NBA amalgamation merger, and he was able. The Trailblazers were able to acquire Maurice Lucas, a tremendous power forward from the Spirits of St. Louis, who folded, and Bobby Grossen, who played in the back, a small forward, an underrated small forward, and Dave Twardzik, who played for the Virginia Squires of the ABA. So 2 of their 5 guys were starters, were ABA players, and the ABA had a great influence on the NBA after that amalgamation merger. They weren't the 1 seed. The 1 seed that year was Jerry West. He was he was coaching the Lakers. They were 53-29. I believe they were the 1 seed. Portland, I believe, could have been the 3 seed. Denver, the number 2 seed. Well, they had a terrific year, and Key and the Trailblazers, they played Denver in the first round with Larry Brown, that great Denver team, which had David Thompson and Dan Issel and Bobby Jones on them. And they won the first game in Denver, which really set the pace for them winning the championship that year, because Denver won the second game. Denver got smoked in the 2 games at Portland. Denver won game 5, and then Portland won game 6. And they basically were on their way. They then played the Lakers, who had the 1 seed. They won the first 2 games at the Forum. They swept them 4-0. And eventually they played, obviously, they played the Philadelphia 76ers. And that was another team that was full of ABA superstars. Dr. J, unfortunately, had to be sold from the Nets because they needed the money to get into the NBA and pay some of the ridiculous merger treaty class. It's just ridiculous, some of the things that they had to do. But anyway, they forced to sell Dr. J, and he went to the Sixers. They had George McGinnis, who played for the Indiana Pacers, at the other forward. They had Caldwell Jones, who was a center in the ABA. He played the middle. He shared it with Darryl Dawkins. They had Doug Collins at 1 guard. They were a great team, and they won the first 2 games of the NBA final at the Spectrum, and then Portland blew them out in the 2 games in Portland. And this Portland team, before we talk about what happened the last couple of games when they won the championship, Alex, this Portland team played great team basketball. Walton was a fantastic passer. He was a fantastic outlet passer. He blocked shots. He rebounded. I believe he was the leading rebounder that year in 1977. Yes, he definitely was in 77. He was a difference maker like no difference makers. And then they come back to play game 5 at the Spectrum, tied 2-2. Close game. They were down by significant. Sixers came back. Then an incident happened. A fight broke out between Darryl Dawkins, who would later play for my Nets, and one of the nicest, really good guy that you'd ever want to meet, got into a fight with Maurice Lucas. And Alex, nowadays they would have gotten suspended for 2, 3, 4 games. It was chaos on the court. Look it up on YouTube. But nobody got suspended. Portland stretched their lead, and I think they won by 12 or 14 points. So they come back to Portland 3-2. So the game is going to be played on. In those days, CBS had the rights to the NBA over the air, media rights. And the head of CBS Sports was big into their golf coverage. So they had the Kemper Open on that day, not one of the great golf tournaments, not one of the majors. So they said to the NBA and to the Trailblazers, we're starting your game at 1:30 Eastern, 10:30 Portland time, 10:30 a.m. So Portland said, well, your cameras could be there, but we're not playing. We're not playing at 10:30 in the morning. Eventually, they compromised, and they played at 12:30 Portland time, 3:30 Eastern time. It was a terrific game. Dr. J had a spectacular game. He dunked over Walton. He scored 40 points in that game 6, but Portland was still down, was still up 2, and Philly had the last shot. Dr. J took a shot from the top of the key. He missed it. They got the rebound, the Sixers did. McGinnis missed the shot. He had this push shot from the left wing. He missed it. Game over. 109-107. Portland They called it Rip City because the fans were just insane, and they played not in the building they played in now. They played in the Portland Coliseum, which held 12,666 people. It was a small basketball venue. And Portland won. They were the new champions on the block. They played a very pleasing game with great team chemistry. But the funny thing is, CBS, not like now you would see them going into the locker room or have this on-court presentation of the championship trophy, the MVP trophy. They cut away. Brett Musburger and Rick Barry were doing the game. Musburger, the legendary play-by-play announcer, and Rick Barry, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. They cut away to the Kemper Open, which is one of the worst.
That's kind of disgraceful, actually.
It's one of the worst. And if Musburger, when he talks about that broadcast, he definitely, even that day before it happened, not now, 30 years later, 50 years later, criticized that day. He said, "What are you doing? We can't just throw it to the Kemper Open." But they did. Like sometime during the Kemper Open, I think they cut back for the presentation, like for 30 seconds. But by that time, every basketball fan was, they turned the TV off or switched the channels. But that's a little known fact about that game being played. CBS wanted that game played at 10:30 in the morning, and they acquiesced and they played at 12:30.
Well, Lou, I think you and I crave the days when 3:30 was when a team wins a championship. Nowadays, they win it at like midnight, it feels like.
Right.
So,
there's something to that. So the next year, Portland gets off to a 50-10 start, and their chemistry is even better. Then Walton breaks his foot. He had 37-foot operations, and it seemed like the Portland Trailblazers doctors screwed up, which led to all those operations that he had. So he was 50-10 with the Trailblazers, and he missed the rest of the season. The Trailblazers lost in the first round to the Seattle Supersonics that year. But Alex,
well, and I tell you what, can you imagine 37-foot operations for a guy who was well over 6 feet? That's got to be really painful. I mean, come on.
You say that, and you're 100% correct, because the great Willis Reed told me in his 18 years as a Nets executive, anytime a big guy, Bill Cartwright, Sam Bowie, who we eventually played for the Nets, they all had leg and foot injuries. But Willis said, when a big guy has foot injuries, foot especially, it's really hard for them to regain their form. And he really he missed most of his career with it. He only played like in 475 games out of a possible 1450 or something like that. But I mean, the guy, he was the MVP of the finals in '77. He even playing just 60 games the next year, or 58 of the 60 games that before he broke his foot, he won MVP in '78. All first team in '78. He was all, believe it or not, he was all second team the year that they won the championship. All defensive team in '77 and '78. Then later in his career, as he came back, he was a sixth man on one of the greatest basketball teams of all time, the 1986 Boston Celtics. And he was their sixth man. And that was a great team with Parrish and Dennis Johnson and McHale and, of course, Larry Bird. They had depth all the way down the roster. And he was the NBA Sixth Man of the Year in 1986 on that great team. He was a great shot blocker. He led the NBA in rebounding the year that they won the championship. And of course,
Lou, I got to ask you this: when he did the post-game conferences, even in his college days, could you tell he was destined for media after his playing days, or what?
No, absolutely not. He had a bad stuttering problem most of his life, and he was able to overcome that. And like you said, he was maybe not the most analytical color analyst of all time, but he was funny, he was colorful, and he added something to the broadcast. But again, just an amazing athlete. Alex, in the 1973 final against Memphis State, now the University of Memphis, he was 21 out of 22. The only shot I believe that he missed was offensive goaltending. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that could be right. He was the most outstanding player of the Final Four, of course, in 73 and in 72. Three-time college player of the year. The 3 years he played, he was the college player of the year. He to me, he's the best college basketball player I've ever seen. Him and Abdul-Jabbar. Abdul-Jabbar, obviously, college tried to stop Jabbar by taking away the dunk shot. Remember, you couldn't dunk in college basketball for about 5 or 6 years before they put the rule back. Maybe it might have been 7. And what happened? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because he was such a great competitor and such a great player, developed the amazing signature shot of his career, the sky hook. I mean, for UCLA to have both Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Bill Walton as their centers in such a short period of time is really unprecedented. But the guy was great, and he only played, like I said, 1.5 years at full strength in the NBA. Alex, if he didn't break his foot, we'd be talking about him as one of the top centers of all time. We'd be talking about him even as one of the top 2 greatest players of all time, Jordan or Walton. That's how good Bill Walton was. I'm telling you, that's how good he was. He was an amazing player. He was flaky. He loved the Grateful Dead. He had long hair. He tied his hair in a.
He was investigated by the FBI. He's got a bit of a file.
He was investigated in the FBI in the Patty Hearst, the Sudanese Liberation Army situation. He didn't want to cut his hair when he was at UCLA, and John Wooden, he was a disciplinarian, said, "Okay, then you don't play." So he went and got a haircut. But
I know, and everybody asked. I guess everybody asked both of them, about that hair situation, because I know that Walton was very stubborn, and Wooden was also kind of stubborn, right? So it was
Walton was stubborn. Obviously, he was a hippie, and he played for John Wooden, who was an old-fashioned disciplinarian. You wore your socks a certain way. You wore your hair a certain way. You carried yourself a certain way. That's why, besides the talent, UCLA had the discipline to win 11 out of 13 NCAA championships, which is remarkable.
Hey, Lou, when you see players today really spotting up for the 3 almost every damn time, and you and I have talked about this before, it's almost like you should go back, if you're an athlete, and watch the legacies of Walton and Abdul-Jabbar and get some more insight, and not just go for the 3, but maybe take up their styles as well.
No, without question. I mean, they've gotten rid of the conventional center play in the NBA for the most part. Now, could Walton and Abdul-Jabbar play in the way the game is played today? Without question, they could, because they were that talented and skilled players. But the traditional center play is not what it used to be. I mean, we have Nikola Jokic, best center in the NBA. He can take you off the dribble, and he can also go outside the arc and punish you with the 3-point shot.
All right, while we're on the Celtics, and then we'll get to Jerry West, and I have one more question on Walton, but while we're talking about the Celtics and Walton and whatnot, real quick, your take on the 3-0 lead. I mean, it just seems like the Celtics are at a peak right now, and I got to say, I'm still hearing more of Jaylen Brown than Jason Tatum. I could be wrong, but it just seems like the JB on that team right now is Jaylen Brown, isn't it?
You are 100% right in your analysis. Right now, Jaylen Brown has raised his level. He's playing at the best basketball of his career. I mean, Tatum, obviously still a great player. He has not. I don't think he's had a great playoff. He did have 31 points last night. The Celtics are an outstanding team. They've played 2 or 3 games in the finals without Porzingis. They've won 11 playoff games in a row. That's really hard to do. When I was on the Nets the second year, we won 10 playoff games in a row, which I was so proud of. But they've won 11 games in a row, and for everybody just a real second on Christoph Porzingis. Everybody who said he was a stiff and all, no, this guy can play, and this guy's a great defender at the rim. He can hit the three. He's got a high basketball IQ, and playing for the Celtics is the perfect team for him. The Celtics are, they're a deep team. White is a great defensive guard. They have guys like Pritchard and Hauser coming off the bench that all contribute. Al Horford's been in the league 1,000 years. Doesn't affect him. He can still either hit the three or he could still mix it up every once in a while. He doesn't go inside that much anymore. But and they did not have a tough time. As we said on previous shows, they had a very easy path to get to the NBA final. And I think they raised their game because of past failures, especially what happened to them last year against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference final. They're going to win a championship. Obviously, they're up 3-0. Dallas has a great backcourt in Luka, Doncic and Kyrie Irving. But the Celtics know that, so they jumped on them. Yes, they made some nice trades. Dallas did at the deadline for PJ Washington and Gabbert, but that's not enough to beat the Celtics. And the fact that Dallas got here, it's probably a feather in their cap. They're not as good as the Celtics. But I have one thing to say about Luka. Great player, probably the second best offensive player in the league after Nikola Jokic. But he's got to mature, man. He's always yapping at the refs. And, yapping at the officials is going to get you nowhere.
That kid gets ejected almost every game, it feels like. At times I read a lot of reports that he gets ejected again. So I get what you're saying, where he just talks and talks and talks. And by the way, he does dancing when he's losing 3-0. I saw there was a video out today of him dancing after the game. What is that? But I don't know.
I think he's immature. He's a fantastic player. I mean, and he plays hard all the time. But if you look at the 6 fouls he picked up, and I'm not sure I would have called them all 6 of them. This is the NBA Finals. This is a superstar player. The players sometimes, I don't know, the way these games are officiated, I scratch my head. He obviously, with about 6.5 minutes to go, and I know this got him ticked off. That's why I think he quickly picked up fouls 5 and 6. He was pushed by Tatum on the drive to the basket when Dallas was making a comeback. And I don't know how they could not see that, the game officials. But anyway, then he picks up a sloppy 5th foul and a sloppy 6th foul. And he's very sloppy on defense. And I don't know if he cares about defense, but if you want to be a championship player, you got to be mature. You can't be yapping at your coaches, and you can't be yapping at the officials, because the officials are human beings. If they see something that's borderline, they're not going to give it in your favor. So he's got a little growing up to do. But like I said, his talent is unmatched, and he's not like one of these guys who doesn't play. He always plays, but just has to grow up a little bit. And he's been in the league long enough now that he should be at that mature level. But if the Dallas Mavericks are going to win an NBA championship, they have to improve their front line for sure. They do not have a championship level.
What was the whole thing between a wedge? I guess Jason Kidd was accused of driving a wedge between Boston teammates. Do you know anything about that dust up that was going on?
No, I guess he tried to play a mind game with them, but it didn't work. That's that I guess it happens all the time. Everybody has puts that bulletin board material out there, but Jaylen Brown obviously is not only a great offensive player, he's a great defensive player. And when last February, when the Celtics inquired, when the Nets said Durant is available to the league, they inquired about that situation, and the Nets right away said, okay, one of the players we want back in any deal is Jaylen Brown. Now we can see why. He'd be great for the Nets, that's for sure. They don't have anybody like him on their team. He's a great, great player, getting greater. And but the Celtics are going to win their 18th championship, and it is.
But they have kind of been. I don't know. I feel like they've been in the background the last few years. Maybe just because they haven't gotten to this point in a little while. So when you say 18th overall, it seems like they haven't won in quite a while. To be honest,
right? They haven't. They haven't run a lot since 2007, 2007 or 2008.
It was the Ray Allen years, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
It was that era.
Yeah.
And it's funny because last night in Boston they had the Brady retirement and the watch party, and this is how dedicated Boston fans are. I mean, personality aside, I know some good Boston fans, but overall, they packed both
It's a great
places.
sports area, no doubt.
They packed both places. Okay, they packed Gillette and they packed TD Bank, which is just pretty cool. And now, of course, I'm saying the Red Sox Yankee series. All right, one last PS on Walton. Did you get to know him or meet him during your Nets years?
I never did. One of the NBA. I never met him or Jerry West. Um, Bill Walton was in our building a lot, especially during those good years when the Nets were going deep into the playoffs and going to the finals, those 2 years in a row. He was the color commentator on ABC/ESPN when we swept Detroit in 2002, and he was hilarious. Not He really was. It was, I forgot who was the play-by-play guy. Maybe Nessler was, and Michelle Tafoya was the sideline reporter, and we swept the Pistons, and he was just terrific on TV. And I remember Michelle Tafoya standing on the scorer's table talking to Kenyon Martin because there was so much chaos on the court after we swept the Pistons and eventually lost the NBA Finals to the Spurs in 6. But he was a character, no doubt about it. Everybody,
that was a great era for the Nets too. I remember they had to beat up against Chauncey Billups and all those guys and whatnot in that Pistons series, and they did it. My Bill Walton story is, according to my dad, because I don't really have this memory, but he told the story of how we went to the NBA All-Star Game festivities when it was at the Javits Center, I think in '99, when Jordan had that incredible All-Star game and won the MVP. If you remember that very vividly, I'm sure you do, in '99. But apparently, I actually got to meet Bill Walton, and I think my dad said something to the point of, I was only going up to his knee. That's how tall he was compared to my size. So there you go. And I was like a little kid.
There were some big guys. The biggest guy I've ever met, and it wasn't Shaq. The biggest guy I ever met was Mark Eaton, who was at least a two-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year. And I was talking to him for something, I forget what, at midcourt. And man, he was a man mountain. He really was. And he played in his senior year. Here's a guy who won multiple NBA Defensive Player of the Year. And in his senior year at UCLA, I believe he played like 53 or 54 minutes the entire senior year. But somebody found him, and he ended up having a great NBA career.
Now, you know what I'm thinking here, Lou, is that we're talking about Bill Walton being so tall. That was a irregularity back then. But wouldn't you say nowadays that's just the norm? All these guys are 6 feet and above now.
Yeah, and when I was in the league for all those years, the average height was 6'7". 6'7". That was the average height of an NBA player.
Compared to when Walton played, it was probably a little shorter than that, right?
Probably, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now,
yes.
You mentioned Jerry West, and obviously he just passed away this week. I know you were a little shocked by that at 86, but what was his? Why is he the logo? Let me ask you that to start out with.
He's the logo because the decade of the 60s, and the NBA designed the logo in 69. Jerry West was one of the greatest players of all time. He was the logo silhouette. Here's a guy in the first year that they gave out the MVP for the finals. They hadn't done that before. In 1969, they lost to the Celtics 4-3, and he averaged, I think, for the entire playoffs, 40 points a game. But in the NBA Finals against the Celtics, he averaged 38 points a game and 7 assists. And he was, I believe, still the only player on the losing team. Yes, he's still the only player on the losing team to win an NBA Finals MVP. Ironically, 10 years earlier, in 1959, in the NCAA championship game, his West Virginia team lost to the University of California 71-70. And even though West Virginia was the runner-up, Jerry West won the most outstanding player of the Final Four. That's how good he was. Alex, this guy could shoot off screens. He could shoot off the dribble. He could take a standstill jump shot. He was a gifted passer. He was a great rebounder for a 6'4" guard. You'll see him listed at 6'3", but he was 6'4". But he always wanted to be listed at 6'3" for psychological reasons. He wanted to think his opponent that not as tall as they think I am, but he was 6'4". He could get in the paint. I mean, in the 60s, we were talking about centers. I saw him drive the paint against the best defensive center of all time, Bill Russell, against Chamberlain, against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, against Willis Reed. Nothing stopped him. He could block shots. And I don't know when the NBA changed the goaltending rule, but now if the ball hits the backboard first and you block it, it's goaltending. But in the 60s, I guess to about the mid-70s, I don't know when they changed it, a player could block a shot even if it hit the backboard first. And, he was great at that. I mean, he made all NBA first team 10 times. He helped create the Showtime Lakers. I mean, besides being a great player, I mean, he got to the finals. He got to the finals 8 times, and he only won one of them against the Knicks in 72. He's on a legendary team in 72 that was 69-13. But he lost 6 times to the Celtics and twice to the Knicks in 70 and the famous 1970 Knicks team, and then he lost to the Knicks again in 73, and then he retired in 74. But then after that, he became a scout, and he loved scouting. He loved to scout guys. And then after that, he was general manager of the Lakers for 18 years. He helped bring Shaq to the Lakers, and he had to make a trade to fit Shaq under the salary cap because it looked like they weren't going to get Shaq as a free agent. So he made a trade, and he was able to get under the salary cap. And then he got Kobe, and I think I've told you this in the past. There are Nets people believe that he colluded to get Kobe, but we didn't draft Kobe anyway. We could have stopped that by drafting Kobe instead of drafting Kerry Kittles. I think I've told you that story. It looked like the Clippers were going to draft Kerry Kittles, who was a terrific player for us, but obviously Kobe's an all-timer. And we said, well, if Kittles is drafted by the Clippers, we're going to take Kobe no matter what. They didn't pick Kittles. We did. And 5 picks later, Charlotte picks Kobe, and West handles this trade with Kobe that many people believe was in a bag before the NBA draft. But he was just he had an eye for talent. And I think I told you, as when we were talking to Mitch Kaufman about 2 months ago, about
the workout
greatest
video.
The workout video. Jerry West said to the Laker writers after the Kobe workout for the Lakers, he said, "I just saw the greatest workout in NBA since I've been in the NBA." So that's 2 teams that have said that, because that's what we said, and that's what Jerry West said. "I just saw the greatest workout by a player in the NBA." And the writer said, "You mean that high school kid? He's only in high school." Because, Alex, you got to remember, in those days, not like now, high school kids or kids with just 1 year of college experience didn't get picked. They didn't get picked until the 2nd round, and there was more rounds in those days. There was 6 or 7 rounds, not the 2 rounds that they have now. So that's how great Kobe was. Then after that,
he had to also hire Phil Jackson.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Let me do that again. He also hired Phil Jackson, right? So he brought them all together then.
Yes. And Phil did not treat him well. Phil chased him out of the locker room. When he came in the locker room, and general managers have the right to be in the locker room. That's their job. And he was part of that, that brought the Lakers together. He, like you said, brought those 3: Shaq, Kobe, and Phil Jackson. and he was there through the 99-2000 season, the first year of the three-peat. And then he left because he got into a contract dispute with Jerry Buss. And Jerry Buss wouldn't give him more money as a general manager. And he was a great general manager. I think there were 7 or 8 NBA general managers who were making more money than Jerry West at that time. So he left. And then after that dispute with Jerry Buss, he went to Memphis as their general manager for 5 or 6 years. They had good teams. I think Hubie Brown was there during that time, I believe. And, they had some success. Then he left them in 2007, and then 2011 became a consultant for the Warriors and was instrumental in convincing Durant to come to the Warriors. He was there for, I think, from 2011 to about 2000 to the 2016-17 season, somewhere in there. And then after that, the last 7 years, up until yesterday when he passed away, he was a consultant for the Clippers. He had a great eye for talent. He's a superstar who loves scouting. A lot of superstars don't like to do that in any sport, but he was a superstar who loves scouting. But I mean, Alex, 10-time NBA All-First Team, 4-time All-Defensive Team, and remember, he'd be more, but they didn't start the defensive team until the middle of his career. The All-Defensive Team. He won the scoring championships in 70. He was a great passer. He won the assist championship in 72. Consensus All-America twice. Southern Conference Player of the Year for West Virginia twice. But again, he was a 2-time NBA Executive of the Year. How many guys can have a Hall of Fame career and have a career as an executive like that? I mean, Isaiah Thomas or Phil Jackson didn't. They were disasters for the Knicks.
It gave me the feeling yesterday that the godfather of the NBA had retired. Did you get that, or had died? Had you felt that yesterday?
It's true. I mean, and there might be more than one godfather, but yes, he definitely falls into that category. You're 100% correct. And
you mentioned Jerry Buss, and I was thankful and lucky that my friend Nathan and his media outlet tagged me alongside Jeannie Buss. I mean, that's some kind of up in the rafters, if you will, right? With Jeannie Buss up there.
That is. I'll give you a quick Jeannie Buss story. 2 years ago, they asked her to name the 5 greatest Lakers, and she didn't include Jerry West, and that's because of the dispute that Jerry West had with her father on that contract 24 years ago. So she was still carrying that grudge. She did not name Jerry West as one of the 50 greatest Lakers. 5 greatest Lakers, excuse me. So that's how it goes. But he was great, and the NBA lost a great one. And I mean, he was sharp right up into the end. And we're losing him. 2 years ago, we lost the great Bill Russell. We've lost Walton. We've lost West. Time marches on. I just wish that the guys who are playing nowadays, and this is what I don't know if they do they realize how great these guys were, like Russell, like Walton, like Jerry West, like Will Chamberlain, like Willis Reed, like Dave DeBusschere, like Walt Frazier, those guys, John Havlicek, Dr. J. Do they
also
know
play with what I would call, they play with character. I feel like some of these guys go out there and complain to the ref, as you mentioned a little while ago, every damn play instead of playing with character,
Yes. And again, guys complained in those days. Oscar Robertson never thought he committed a foul. And he was one of the 5 greatest players of all time. And I'm not a list guy, but you put him in that category. So guys complained. But the one thing is those guys never did. They played every game. Jerry West and Oscar and those guys never took a night off of game management. Now, you can't play more than 2 NBA games in a row. But in those days, the Players Association wasn't as strong as it is now, and it wasn't even good for the quality of basketball. You play sometimes 4 games in 4 different cities. I mean, but none of those guys took load management off. As I told you, Chamberlain played every minute of every game in 61-62 season.
And then you told me when you were in the Nets days, these guys were out partying anyway the night of the landing in a city. So there's that also.
Well,
hey,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, with all of this going on, I just don't think they appreciate. I agree there. But Lou, with all this going on and whatnot, um, hold on, let me gather my thought. I had my thought and I didn't have my thought. I
Okay.
was gonna do a Fanatics live read there because
Oh,
Kevin
okay,
Durant's
yeah.
gonna. All
Do
right,
it.
all
Do
right.
it.
Here we go.
And
In
then
three,
and
two.
just edit that part out. Do the Fanatics live read. And then we'll wrap it up with a quick Stanley Cup final thing. Because I
Yeah.
have a couple of things to say about Draisaitl not getting suspended.
Hey, Lou, you just mentioned Kevin Durant, and did you know that he's going to be part of the Fanatics Fest this August? He and some of his friends are going to be at the Fanatics Fest for a panel, and you can find out more in the link below. And of course, Lou, you know, Tom Brady did have his number retired, and he's in the Patriots Hall of Fame. He'll be at Fanatics Fest along with Derek Jeter, David Ortiz, and so many more great athletes. I see Henrik Lundqvist will be there on Sunday, August 18th. Hope to get to meet him. Andy Pettitte, the famous lefty for the Yankees, with that wicked pickoff move and whatnot, world champion. Lou, what a lineup. And even your guy, Pete Alonso, is going to be there as well. So it's not a can't miss event this week, this August, August 16th through 18th, Fanatics Fest. The link is below. And I know I usually put an affiliated link out, but this is so important. I want you to know more about the Fanatics Fest 2024 in the link below on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network.
Well, Alex, that's great to hear. And the only thing you said, it's August 16th to the 18th.
That's right.
Okay. The question will be, will Pete Alonso still be a Met, or will he be a rental on some other team because the trade deadline is August 1st? Very interesting. I keep an eye on that. I think that the Mets are going to try to trade Alonso. I don't know. Maybe they'll try to re-sign him in the offseason, but I don't know. I would say it's 50-50. So
Well, we'll have to see. Well, but by the way, the link again in the bio below, in the description below, to Fanatics Fest 2024. One way or another, I'm sure Alonso will commit to this agreement. You would think so. We'll have to see. Hey, you know, Lou, I want to ask you about lists before we go on to the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. And why is it that NBA lists are most debated upon all the other sports? I feel like they don't come out with a list for baseball and hockey and football like they do with the NBA. Why is that?
Well, again, as I said, I am not a fan of lists. You can name the 5 greatest basketball players who have played NBA basketball, and I can name 5 others. And our lists are going to be basically equal as far as talent and accomplishments. I mean, you could say that Jordan and LeBron and Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Kobe, those 5. And I can name 5 others. I can name Durant, and I can name, I go right down the list. You could give them top 5 or top 10 significance or recognition, but you're going to keep Larry Bird and Magic Johnson off a top 5 list or a top 10 list. You're going to keep Dr. J off that list. You're going to keep Rick Barry off that list. That's why I'm not. You might want to, if you want to create a category, a super blue chip player and then a blue chip player, I think that's more like it. But to keep it to a definite number is, I don't know why. You're right. It's more in the NBA than any other sport. It really is. They put lists together a little bit. Then the NFL would be second, I think, in just what I hear. But I don't understand why, they bump guys off lists. Like I said, I think it's more of categories. You're not going to tell me that, this guy's not a top 10 player because we can't squeeze him in, or a top 5 player.
Or in baseball, the famous ones I'm thinking of as of recent is the one guy that didn't vote Jeter into the Hall of Fame. That was kind of a screwed up move. And then, of course, he got recently an anonymous player saying Juan Soto is overrated. I mean, some of these people just want to make a name for themselves by putting down great athletes. I'm just saying.
Well, I think that's true. Now, again, you mentioned Jeter. Again, a lot of writers don't believe that play should get in on the first ballot, which I think is nonsense. But you go through Major League Baseball in the history of the Hall of Fame, Babe Ruth didn't get every vote. Joe DiMaggio didn't get every vote. Hank Aaron didn't get every vote. Tom Seaver didn't get every vote. I mean, Tom Seaver had the highest percentage for years before Mariano. and Jeter, but how could Tom Seaver not get every vote? Probably half of the guys in the Hall of Fame should have gotten every vote on their first try. I mean, really?
Also, the MLB and NFL, we've talked about this before, those Hall of Fames just seem to be expanding beyond the beyond right now. It's just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I love Scott Rowland as a player, but is he a Hall of Famer? That's the question. Like all these
He's
guys.
not. Yeah, he really isn't. So, I mean, is he more of a Hall of Famer than Keith Hernandez or Don Mattingly or Dale Murphy? I don't think so. But again, that's for another day. We can go deep into that as we get closer to Hall of Fame day next month.
Now, on the other side, on the ice side of things, you've got the Panthers and Oilers, and obviously the travel time, so they've had a few days off in between games here. But Panthers up 2-0, and I know you have a gripe about what's going on in play conduct. Tell us about the Draisaitl hit.
Well, Leon Draisaitl is one of the greatest players in the world, not only in the NHL. He can score from every angle. When they play on the same line, and they don't play on the same line all the time, but him and McDavid are magic. But the other night, and I think he got superstar treatment on this, he left his feet, and his elbow came up, and he hit Florida's best player, their top center, and their captain Alexander Barkov in the face with his elbow, and the Selke Trophy winner for 2024 went down in the heap, and Draisaitl didn't even get a 5-minute major. They looked at it and they just gave him a 2-minute minor. I thought there was going to be some supplemental discipline, but obviously there wasn't. He's playing tonight, and that's very lucky for the Edmonton Oilers, who have been bottled up by the Florida Panthers, very much like in the Rangers series. The Panthers were able to bottle up the Oilers 10, 11 minutes without a shot on goal. And that's what the Panthers have done to take a 2-0 lead. Obviously, the series is not over. I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton wins tonight and again on Saturday, and they go back 2-2. I can't see them winning 4 out of 5, though. Just disappointed that it seemed like Draisaitl got away with something that he shouldn't have. That was a dirty hit. There's no other way in my opinion, that there's no other way to say it. Maybe if his name was Leon Smith, he would have been suspended. I thought he should have been thrown out of the game. It should have been a 5-minute major, and he should be missing tonight's game. But I just had to make that statement. Florida has been able to hold them in check, but Edmonton has been able to hold some of the strengths of Florida in check. So, like I said, I don't think this series is over. Bobrovsky gave up his first, probably weak goal of the entire playoffs the other night when it went through his legs. A very stoppable shot, but then he made some great saves afterward. I mean, on McDavid, and he's on right now. I would say he's the leading candidate for the Conn Smythe Trophy as Stanley Cup playoff MVP. Remember, it's not just the finals; it's the entire playoffs in the NHL that you get considered for MVP. And I got to give a shout out to a guy nobody knows about, Gustav Forsling, left-handed defenseman. The guy was cut by the Blackhawks. Then was picked up by the Hurricanes and really didn't make it there. Well, he was traded from the Blackhawks to the Hurricanes and then cut by the Hurricanes. And the Panthers picked him up the next day. And a couple of months ago, after improving his game, he signed an 8-year, $46 million contract. The guy is underrated. You got to watch him play. He passes the eye test. He's an all-around defenseman and one of the most underrated in the league. He's great on the penalty kill. He's improved his offensive game in the last 2 years. I just had to give an unsung hero shout out to Gustav Forsling.
Yeah, no, I mean, Forsling's name was mentioned a lot the last series against the Rangers. I mean, he was very active. Now, I got to just say this. The Rangers, by the way, I don't know, I think I mentioned this to you, but I want to just publicly shout out Isaac Markovitz of the social impact team at Madison Square Garden Sports. I'm looking right now at a Barkley Goudreau, and get this, I'm looking right now at it. Hold on. Our Barkley Goudreau and a Ryan Lingwin signed puck, both of them coming to our apartment here, thanks to the Rangers outreach. How about that? So,
Well, that I'm glad to hear that. I really am. And hey, Barkley Goudreau is one of those guys you have to have on your team if you want to win the cup, and obviously he proved that with Tampa Bay. And it's going to be interesting to see how much money the Rangers. I guess Lindgren is restricted, so to see how much they're going to give him. I'm sure they'll re-sign him. I think he's improved his game. He's a tough kid. The Rangers don't want to lose him.
and Goudreau played a huge role in this playoffs. I mean, he
No
had
doubt.
a few big goals and everything. And I remember that empty netter versus Carolina was like a huge play too, huge goal too. So I love that the Rangers do reach out to their fan base like this, and want to give them a shout out on Terminello's take. How about that?
Well, you should. They deserve it.
All right, Lou. Well, that's pretty much it. We'll get into the baseball world. I have mixed thoughts about the weekend in London for the Mets. I thought that a split was good. You kind of disagree that they're going anywhere. I think, hey, they might still be on a track, but I could be wrong on that, Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not optimistic. I think they're, as I said to you last week, unfortunately, right now they're bad and they're boring, and that is the worst combination any sports franchise in any sport can have, not just baseball.
And Rizzo did hit a homer today as we're recording this. So, boom, he looks like he's heating up on the Yankee side of things. So you need him to
As
be
I
alive
told
as
you,
well in the summer.
I'll say one thing. I know we want to wrap this up real quick. Remember in April when everybody was worried about Aaron Judge and they were saying
Send
maybe
him down.
Yeah, sit him down. I told you. I mean, come on. He's one of those super chip blue players. Him, Soto. You got two on that team. Oh, and by the way, another thing with Yankee fans. This is my final comment today. Yankee
Final
fans.
take. Yep.
All those years screaming and criticizing Stanton, the guy's got what, 16 home runs, Alex? I mean, okay, he may not be the hitter he was, but he's
And it's
still
not just
part
home
of
runs. He's knocking these things out of the park, like into the fountains and
right
in Kaufman. It's not just a homer; it's the power with it too.
Right,
so.
And that's a hard place to hit home runs. So Stanton, all these Yankee fans should take note.
And I would say this: everybody loves to criticize Cashman, but he's put this team together, and I think he's got a good team going here. So
no doubt about it.
I credit him, and you know what? Yankee fans might hate me for saying this. I credit Boone. I think he's done a great job this year with everything. I mean, they are 49 wins without a healthy Cole, and I know he's just one piece of it, but that's a big piece, right? So
no, it's a big piece, but they did not expect Luis Heel to be 8-1. So
that's amazing.
So that kind of made up for the Cole injury. As I told you all year, the Yankees are fine. They're going to be in the playoffs, and they're going to be a factor to win the World Series. I think they're better than the Dodgers.
Yeah, I don't know. That last weekend series, which was a series in June, as far as I'm
nothing. Man, that means nothing. It was good to watch, but it doesn't mean nothing what's going to happen in late October if they do meet. I mean, a lot can happen.
The only thing notable is that Ohtani struggled. I mean, he didn't hit a homer really in that series, and of course, he didn't do well pitching there last time. So I don't know. Maybe he's got a bit of a thing, some nerves that hit him when he gets to Yankee Stadium. It's just interesting. But
maybe that's why he didn't want to play for the Yankees or the Mets. Couldn't play in New York.
There you go. Well, then again, they go on the coast and hit 4 homers in 1 inning 3 days later. So how about that? Well, all right, Louis, always a pleasure. And thanks for remembering Bill Walton and Jerry West with us from not only your fan experience, but your Nets executive years. Thanks for all your analysis today.
My pleasure. It was an enjoyable show. Thank you. Look forward to next week.